Welcome to a new video in my home automation series, and today I want to talk about these two new dongles from Sonoff. I almost wanted to say USB one, but that's USB dongle, and that's actually an Ethernet, Ethernet and USB dongle. And they are for people who are not, primarily using EV-Link, but they are using either Zigbee2MQTT like I do or Home Assistant, and they want to extend their current set of devices with Zigbee devices. So for example, what I have done in the past, which I covered in a couple of videos, is I had a much older version of this USB dongle. So that gets plugged into the computer, which is running either Home Assistant or Zigbee2MQTT or both of them. And then the computer is going to talk to this guy, and this guy is going to interface with all the Zigbee devices at your home. So that's going to be your Zigbee gateway or coordinator, whatever you want to call it. And I started building my own Zigbee network with the first Sonoff USB dongle back in 3 years ago. So that dongle is still connected to my computer, and that's basically serving my Zigbee networks ever since. And it's been running 24/7. I think originally it was connected to a Raspberry Pi, but later on when I upgraded to a PC-based home server, then it was plugged into that. But it's working fine for 3 years, and actually since then that's the third and this is the fourth dongle from Sonoff itself. And of course there are other manufacturers with Zigbee coordinators. These two products have been sitting on my shelf for some time, and the only reason I haven't reviewed them previously because I didn't have a new project for these devices. And to be honest, I'm still happy with the existing Zigbee coordinator that I have for the last 3 years. Granted, I don't have a huge Zigbee network. I haven't run into issues like, there will be a limit on the number of devices that I use. But definitely, if I would start over, I would probably start with this. And since I was talking about all these, let me just bring up this, chart that Sonoff has created to show all the different dongles. And if you happen to be looking at dongles for different makers, then probably you can also relate. So it has started with the Dongle Plus, the one model that I have, and then it was followed then with the Dongle E, and now we have the two new models, which is this Dongle Plus MG24 and the Dongle Max. And you can see that the first three models are targeting the same type of project and the same type of use case. So they are a USB based dongle, so they are created to be plugged into a computer, which let's say runs Zigbee2MQTT or Home Assistant, and then that's how the Zigbee network and the host computer, which is running your home automation server, is going to communicate. So this has nothing to do with the EV-Link application or iHost. So that's, as I said, it's purely for, let's say, third-party solutions. And then with the new Dongle Max, we have gone away a little bit from this option, because it still has a USB port, but it also has an Ethernet port and a PoE Ethernet port. So that product would be ideal if, let's say, you have a server in a certain place in your home, which is not ideal for a Zigbee coordinator. I mean, after all, your Zigbee coordinator is your central hub for your Zigbee. So if it's in the basement, or if it's like the other end of the house, then you can build up your mesh Zigbee network, but probably it would be better to start from a place where you have most of your devices anyway. So in that case, this Dongle Max is ideal, because you can just wire it up to an Ethernet port on your home, and so it doesn't have to be physically tethered to the server which is running the software. And of course, on top of that, it has a Zigbee antenna, and it also has a Wi-Fi antenna. So it also acts as an access point. And again, looking at the further specifications, you can see that the antenna signal strength has improved as well. So we have gone from 2 dBi to 3 and 5. So definitely, if you want the best coverage, then you would look for the Dongle Max. Again, you can build out this network using other Zigbee devices, with the Zigbee mesh network. So I wouldn't say it is critical, but a better signal quality and better reception always helps to make a strong network. And probably the biggest difference for me is that the very old or the very first Zigbee coordinator was delivered with this CC2652 chip, and now they have, with even the second and the third and the fourth model, they have changed for this the new EFR32 chip. And of course, there has been a couple of variants. You see there's like G21 and G24, and again, G24 for the two new models. And of course, these do matter because the number of devices that they can handle and some of the features that they support is definitely is going to be greater for newer models and a bigger chip. So this is why I said that because the relatively small Zigbee network that I have at home, I haven't run into the limitations of the CC chips yet. But again, it would eventually come in the future. Again, a big difference in terms of setting up these devices and using them, for example, in Zigbee2MQTT, is the serial interface protocol. So this is something that you would need to configure in, let's say, in Zigbee2MQTT. So I have done a video fairly recently, a couple of months ago, when I upgraded my Zigbee2MQTT to the the 2 point something version, which we have at the moment. So that was like a big version upgrade. And in the configuration file, I had to specify what is the adapter type. So I had to see I have to say that mine old one is still using Z-Stack. But then, for these newer models, you have to just set the adapter type to Amber. And probably the biggest difference with this Dongle Max is that, for the USB dongles, there wasn't really any configuration options or, separate configuration you had to do. You just plug it into a computer and then you configure the, the serial port in Zigbee2MQTT and you were ready to go. With the Dongle Max, it obviously has some extra features. It's plugged into the internet. So you have options how you set up, IP addresses, and because it also has these Wi-Fi options, then of course you need additional configuration options, for example, to create an access point, to set up how that access point is going to work. So the Dongle Max also has an internal portal where you can make all this configuration. So let me do the unboxing so you can see what you get in each of the boxes with each of these products. So the first one is the Dongle Plus MG24. So this the chip has this MG24 version, that's hence the name. And it is, definitely much sleeker than the earlier units, because the earlier units were much bigger. There was like a big heatsink, and this one definitely feels like, much smaller. It has an aluminum case and a really huge antenna that you can, rotate freely. Yeah, that's it. As I said, there isn't much to it, and there isn't much in terms of using it, because you plug it in and then you install the necessary Zigbee2MQTT software. So yeah, it's easy to use. It's just a no-brainer. You buy this and then plug it in. In case you need some extra cable and you want to reach to a different place, like let's say you have a computer cabinet, which is, let's say, metal, and you want to route the the coordinator outside this cabinet, there is a USB extension lead provided as well. And actually that's quite nice. So you can, get the dongle and especially the antenna out of like a metal enclosure to get, to have better reception. And yeah, in terms of the documentation, it doesn't really say much, because most of the documentation is going to be on the software that you are using it. But again, it's mostly on the software side where you want to utilize this Zigbee functionality. And I have done quite a few these Zigbee2MQTT setup videos in various hardwares. So I'm just going to link those videos in the video description if you are interested in the details. Since I owned my Zigbee coordinator, I haven't touched it. I haven't flashed the firmware, but Sonoff has a firmware flasher software on this one. I think that the software version which this device is delivered with is probably going to be good enough. I would assume that maybe if there is more support with Thread or introduction of Thread, we might want to update the firmware so it supports that as well, or Matter to some extent. But if you're using it for Zigbee, then you just plug it in and you're ready to go. And putting all these to side, let me just unbox the Dongle Max, which is definitely going to be a slightly bigger one because of the, obviously, double antenna, and you also get some cables and everything. There is a mounting bracket, so if you want to mount it on a wall, then you can do that. And that's the dongle itself. So as you can see, I haven't even removed it from the wrapping. There is a port here for network. And as I mentioned previously, so this supports PoE as well. So if you want to run it, then, or if you have PoE, you can just plug this in, and that's going to provide power and also, you know, internet or intranet. But you also have a USB port that you can also use for power, which I think I'm going to do because I don't have power over Ethernet, especially here. I can remove this nice casing. So this one is an aluminum case as well. There is some indicator lights that you can configure, and but other than that, you just connect the two antennas, and then luckily Wi-Fi and Zigbee works on the same frequency, so I don't have to worry about too much which antennas I put to each side, because I don't think it really matters, and there's no markings on the antenna that would tell me that one goes to one side and the other goes to other. And in fact, there is no markings. Oh, there is. So it says Wi-Fi here, and that says Zigbee there. So yeah, it's just a normal SMA connector. So you just screw this in. And again, you have a lot of degree of freedom how you point the antennas. And also, I think that also depends on where you are going to mount this, and you know how much space you have available for each of these antennas. So it is a bigger baby than the other dongle. So in the box, it looks like we are also getting some mounting screws, and you also get it feels like a quite nice USB cable. So I'm probably going to use that as well. So USB A to just a standard USB-C cable. By the way, if you want a different mount, there is a website. You can get the link from the Sonoff website, where you can get 3D printable designs if you want to mount this any other way. And to be honest, I don't want to spend much time discussing this MG24 dongle, because I don't think it's basically any difference from any other dongle. I mean, of course it is different, but in terms of using it and then configuring it, let's say Zigbee2MQTT, it's the same, and this is something that I already discussed. So what I have done is, as you can see, I've connected the Dongle Max to USB for power and then Ethernet for network, because I don't have power over Ethernet here. And in my browser, I just typed dongle-m.local, and this is the site, and that's where I'm going to set up my dongle. So first, it asks me to create a password and then confirm it in order to set up this device. And you are creating that password for the admin user, and this is the user interface of the new dongle. So, well, it actually says that there is a new firmware version available here, and then it also shows you that, you know, it's connected to the internet, and the USB port is not connected, because you can, you know, use the USB port just how you would use the USB-A port on the other dongles. But I think because it has the Ethernet option, yeah, why not use the Ethernet? So we are going to explore the options together. So on the top, you can see that it says the Wi-Fi is disconnected because we haven't configured the access point mode. It is connected to the internet. There, the access point is enabled, but it's not connected. The coordinator is in coordinator mode, and there is no Zigbee2MQTT or Home Assistant connected. And it looks like it can also support the EV-Link Brimwood gateway, because the Wi-Fi part of it uses some sort of ESP32 chip. And we don't have any notifications, and we have a new firmware version, and we have an IP, and yeah, there is a lot of device status here, and it looks like that's the ESP info for the the ESP for the Wi-Fi option, and that's the Zigbee part of it, and memory, and various firmware version, and the network status. And of course, if you want to use this for Zigbee2MQTT or Home Assistant, I would probably set up a static IP address for it, so you can refer to that. So let's look at the other settings. So network, so we can do an access point. And here you can already see that it is, primarily designed to be an access point for IoT devices, and maybe not to be used by high traffic devices, for example, tablets and phones and computers. So actually, when I initially heard about this product and the Wi-Fi option, I thought that Sonoff is marketing it as a general access point, and just to improve your home Wi-Fi. But it clearly looks like that it's still trying to address the IoT market. So if you want to, build a very robust, mesh network, then probably you should be looking at for a different product which, has multiple access point to create a mesh network. And those products usually have options to create a separate Wi-Fi network for either guest or IoT devices. But if you don't have that, or you just have like a smaller apartment where you have a Wi-Fi access point, or a router which is provided by your ISP, then you can use this Dongle Max to create an IoT network for your, IoT devices. So you can see that by default, the access point is enabled. So it creates a Wi-Fi network with this name and the password. And you can also even disable internet connection for that Wi-Fi network. So your IoT devices would only have access to your local network. So let's say your Sonoff devices, which is actually fine. Probably the only downside is that you won't be able to run a firmware upgrade, but maybe you can just temporarily enable the internet connection, do the firmware update, and then you can block the internet connection again, just for security reasons. So that's actually a nice option. And then on the Ethernet, you have the configuration, again, smart IP, DHCP, or static IP. So I would say that if you would use it for Zigbee2MQTT Home Assistant, you set up a static IP, because obviously you would want to refer to this device using the IP address. And also you have a VLAN configuration. So you would use this option if you actually want the Wi-Fi to connect to your home network. Let's say if in case you can't use the Ethernet connection. But again, it is an option. You can use that as well. But I think if you are using Ethernet, if you have the option, then I would definitely want to use the Ethernet. So these are the various network settings. And the next option is the EFR32MG24. So that's the chip which handles all the Zigbee traffic. And you can choose a couple of different options here. So you can set up the coordinator or set up this device to be a coordinator or a router. So again, that's a nice touch, because I would use this device as a coordinator if I would be setting up a new Zigbee network, especially because it has the biggest antenna from the range and the highest dBi. But if you really want to create a big Zigbee network, then you can buy these devices just to be used as routers. Of course, you have the option for any a mains powered Zigbee device to be a router, but they would definitely have less range in terms of communication and the antenna gain. So you buy one of these Max dongles, you set them into coordinator mode, and then the second and the third, you would set them up as a router mode. So then they would work together to build one single mesh network. And you have the option here to enable the thread mode as well. I haven't worked with, Thread. I do have Thread devices, but I'm using my, Google Nest Hub as a Thread border routers. I haven't explored this option. That's probably something that I would be looking at in the future, especially once I start using something like Matter2MQTT, which would be similar to Zigbee2MQTT. So I can transfer the data from Matter devices and integrate it into some system like, in my case, it's going to be Node-RED, not Home Assistant. Next, we also have settings for Zigbee2MQTT and ZHA for Home Assistant. So if I go to Zigbee2MQTT, then so you can see that we have the different options, how we can connect it to the server using USB or Ethernet or TCP. So you see that, if you would use a USB, then the config or the setup is not going to be any different than the other dongle that you need to plug into the USB, because it's just a USB device, and then you just have to find the serial port and then set it up. And of course, it also says here that the adapter is Ember. So that's again something that you have to put into your the configuration. I think it's configuration YAML for the Zigbee2MQTT. But again, you can just copy it here and then put it there. And if you want TCP connection, then, it is also going to be very similar. The adapter type is again Ember. There is the same baud rate, but the port, for USB, it's like, /dev/tty USB something, or /dev/serial/by-id. But then in that case, the port is just going to be TCP and dongle -m.local and the port is 6638. If you have no issues with, DNS translation, you can use this name as well. But again, if you set up a static IP, you can, replace this part with the IP address of the Dongle Max as well. So there is a similar setup for Zigbee ZHA for Home Assistant, and it tells you about, obviously you have to plug it in, and this is where you navigate in Home Assistant, and pretty much the same as well if you want to use the TCP option. So again, you do the navigation, and the setup is going to be slightly different, again with the same caveat as what I just mentioned with either DNS names or the IP address. So I do like this interface because it also explains what you need to do, and if you don't need more information, you can click into learn more, so that takes you to another website where it explains the steps in more detail. We have a couple of tools here as well. You can enable MQTT, and that's not an MQTT broker on the device itself, but this is the MQTT broker, which let's say is running on your Home Assistant. So this can report status and exchange some of the functions using MQTT. So if you enable that, and if you're using Home Assistant, then the Dongle Plus is just going to appear as a new device in Home Assistant, and you have options to like reboot it and get the general status of this device. So it's a nice feature if especially if you want to monitor it from Home Assistant. And you have some other options as well, how you can create webhooks. So this can trigger various calls to systems like Home Assistant or any other management system if some actions happen on these dongles. So you can see some of these actions here. So, okay, not the webhook name, but that's the trigger. So these are the actions that it supports. And then whenever something like this happens, it can call a URL and then, do a get method and then pass some information over. So let's say if you have Home Assistant, but then you have something else installed besides that, maybe something separate, like, I don't know, for example, Node-RED, which would be my pick, then you can set up a webhook. Then if it disconnects from Zigbee2MQTT from Home Assistant, because let's say Home Assistant died for any reason or Zigbee2MQTT died, then you can create this webhook call and if you can handle that separately in another server using Node-RED or something else, then you can send the notifications, you can do something about it, so at least you get a notification that something happened. So yeah, I mean, that's a nice functionality. I don't think it would be used a lot, but again, you can probably, monitor disconnection and some other issues in Home Assistant as well, even without webhooks. But, there is always an option to create something custom here. WireGuard is a VPN connection that you can also use. I mean, again, I have my own server. I have OpenVPN installed on that, so I'm not really looking at creating another VPN. But if you don't want to bother installation with software like that, you can get this Dongle Max, you can enable the WireGuard, and you have your own VPN connection managed by your Dongle Max. And the next option is you have an energy scan. I mean, the reason I don't want to start it because I haven't really set up the Wi-Fi and the Zigbee part of it. But it's similar to how you can get these apps on smartphones which scans your Wi-Fi channel and tells you which channels don't have too much traffic, so you can use that for your Wi-Fi router. And of course, this can do the same for the Zigbee network as well. So again, I think it's useful stuff which we would probably use once in a while. And then you have the remote gateway where you can connect these devices, for example, the S-Mate or the S-Mate 2 or the Sonoff R5, and there are quite a few of these EV-Link remote gateways, and then these devices would be shared across MQTT broker once you set up the integration with the MQTT broker. So that's actually one more reason to set up the MQTT connections, so you can just easily integrate these devices. And actually, this is also a really nice feature because if you want battery operated devices and you don't want to install EV-Link just for that, you want to do your homebrew system for that, then the dongle can do that. But of course, you can get similar Zigbee devices, buttons, push buttons, and I mean switches as well. And this is Zigbee, so I mean, you can pick and choose whether you want these EV-Link, remote control switches, or just actual Zigbee switches for that functionality. Firmware update, actually there is a new version, so I'm going to run this, and it looks like that the version update is for the Wi-Fi part of it, not for the Zigbee. And you can do, again, change the password, you can do some backlisting, and then, backup and restore configuration here. Actually, the one thing I would be looking for is if I want to upgrade my coordinator. As I said, I have the basically the oldest model, and now, for example, I have this USB model. I'm quite happy where my server is, and so I mean, using this is going to be sufficient for me. So one option that I would be definitely looking at is how I can back up the coordinator information from the old dongle, so I can put it into the new dongle, because obviously once you switch the coordinator, it's going to be a different coordinator and different Zigbee network, so you would need to resync all your devices to the new coordinator, which is obviously is going to be but not much pain for me, because I have maybe 10 or a dozen devices. But if you have a huge Zigbee network, it could be a real pain, especially light switches that are fixed to the wall. So get them into pairing mode is a little bit more tedious than what I would be facing. And finally, we have some settings. So you can change the name of the device, which could be again useful if you're using multiple of them. You can just name them according to where they are located or placed, and you can change the DNS name. Again, if you have more than one, then you want to change the name so they don't respond to the same address. And yeah, find device, I guess that would just blink this LED which is on the device, and you have a couple of options here for dark mode, and you can change even the LED indicator, what it does on the device. You can change the color of it, a lot of flashy things which I don't think we would use a lot. And then yeah, you can have a reboot options for the various chips or for the entire dongle as well. So I think it's a really extensive set of functions and features on the Dongle Max. But again, keep in mind that if you only want to use Zigbee, the chip between these two models are exactly the same. Probably the only difference that I can see from the specs that these are a slightly higher gain antenna than on this one. So if you are purely going for the reception and the coverage, I would recommend the Dongle Max. But if that is not a primary reason, you just want something which is purely for Zigbee, then in that case I think the Dongle Plus is going to be a good option as well. Thank you for watching this review and also comparison between the two models. I hope I was able to convey enough information for you and then just help you to decide whether you want any of these two products. If you do, well, I'm going to leave some affiliated links in the video description. But I think that's all going to be for today. Thanks for watching, and hopefully see you next one.